Well, I don't think it's a big shock to anybody that the Toronto Blue Jays had a very tough time scoring runs last season. Well, Carter, we might have a fix on something they can bring to their game to help drive those runs in.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Of course, I'm Braden Iwasco. He's Carter First. You can find us on Twitter, Braden5 Iwasco, Carter First too, as well on Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Blue Jays. If you're new here to YouTube or you're listening anywhere else, you should hit the subscribe button. It helps us out. It's free to do so. You get videos, podcasts, live streams, shorts, sort of everything. We've got a lot of content coming for you guys before the season, during the season. When the season gets going, there'll be sort of the post-game recap on the shorts and the TikTok and the Instagram and everything like that. Probably on our Twitters as well throughout the game. So make sure you guys do follow us on everything. Discord link is down in the description. You guys can talk Blue Jays with us whenever you want as well. Some big news. The Locked On Blue Jays Fantasy League is kicked off. It is in the description. So if you guys go down to the description, if you're listening wherever or on YouTube, you can hit that button. You can join the Fantasy League. There are 18 spots available. If that gets eaten up very quickly, maybe we'll start a second one. If Carter's in one, I'm in one, but we'll see what the reception's like to this. But we hope that you guys do join. You have some fun. And me and Carter, we might have something for the winner or that's all I'll say for now. So make sure you guys do join that league. It should be a ton of fun. Carter's in it. I'm in it. And we'll put everybody's baseball knowledge and bias to the test, I guess, with all these Toronto Blue Jays fans in one league. So a lot to talk about today. Of course, Carter, something that you've wanted to talk about for probably 4 or 5 months. I don't know. We've been putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. It's finally time to get here. The Toronto Blue Jays, like I said in the opening, could not score runs. It was a big problem last season. And I think when you look at this team's problem area outside of the bullpen was the inability to score runs. The starting pitching was good. I don't think that's an argument. I think over the past few seasons, it's been good, if not great at points as well. But to win baseball games, you've got to score runs. I don't think it's a big, I'm shocking anybody with that quote there. So, Carter, I guess to kick things off, why don't you get it right into it? Because I know you've been waiting long enough already to talk about this.
Yeah, when we just look at the Toronto Blue Jays offense in 2024 on paper, I mean, who kind of would have thought in retrospect that we would have been here? You have Justin Turner in the number 4 spot. I think we kind of were a little bit too hyped up about the Toronto Blue Jays offense, especially coming out after that 2023 season. Coming off of that, where the offense, again, was not that good. The lineup did not change too much. Again, hard to anticipate all the horrific seasons that we did see some of our Toronto Blue Jays players have, but just going over some of the team stats this offense produced in 2024. They're 19th in batting average, 23rd in runs scored. They ranked 26th in the MLB in home runs with 156. Less than a home run per game, not really going to get it done if you want to be a competitive baseball team. 13th in on-base percentage. They're 20th in slugging, 27th in stolen bases, and 18th in hits. So this offensive production obviously led to Guillermo Martinez getting fired. In this offseason, they did hire the ex-Twins hitting coach, David Popkins, to kind of take over, and it looks like he is trying to change the philosophy a little bit. He looks like he wants to switch things up, kind of change the approach that some of these hitters will have going into this 2025 season to try to revamp the offense and get some more run production. So I have a quote here from David Popkins that kind of outlines this. He goes in to say, "My philosophy is built off creativity. We're trying to become the most creative lineup at scoring runs in baseball. We do that by practicing all of our different situations and the clubs that we're going to need in that game." He says some situations call for a pitching wedge or a 7-iron, chasing contact in certain counts, or even trying to shoot a line drive the other way. Everyone knows it's all about letting the driver rip, though. Popkins wants his hitters to set themselves up for those moments and take their chances. There needs to be some risk involved. So exactly what you want to see after, again, not a very successful offensive season. The Jays technically were above average in terms of weighted runs created plus, but you go over all those other underlying statistics pretty much in the bottom half of the league in every single one of those. So I think one way, and that's going to be the main focus of this episode, that they could kind of switch this offensive output up, is by stealing a lot of bases. It's by taking some more risks, like Popkins said, letting their players run, because there are a bunch of players on this Toronto Blue Jays team that have had success at stealing bases and are pretty quick as well, have a little bit of sneaky speed that they could use to advance this offense in 2025.
Yeah, he's talking to the right crowd with the golf references. I'm getting ready for that for summertime coming up here. Um, but you're right, Carter, and stealing bases has always been a big component of baseball, and it seemed like over the past few years, Ross Atkins, John Schneider have sort of been just not really worried about it, not thinking about it, but it's a huge component in generating runs. Sometimes you have to. Some days the offense just isn't firing on all cylinders, and you have to take some chances and go for things like that, right? And steal bases. We have, like you said again, that we have seen the ability that some of these players have to be able to steal bases. So a little bit of me just got very sick and tired of seeing situations where this Toronto Blue Jays team could take a bag, right? You see Daulton Varsho or Bichette even on some occasions where you're like, just run, just go. And they don't, and it gets caught up, and then it's a double play that Alejandro Kirk hits into, or Vladdy rolls over, and you're pulling your hair out a little bit. It's very frustrating way to watch when a team that should be so offensive, right, having some of these big bats, these guys that should be leading in a lot of offensive categories, not do well and not take advantage of situations. And, at the time it was like, what's John Schneider doing? But we don't know what's being talked about behind the scenes. We don't know what the game plan was like. So at the end of the day, absolutely, this team needs to be stealing more bases. And I just, as we go on and we continue to talk about this, and as I continue to watch spring training games, you can already tell the difference in these spring training games. Guys are running, they're going. And I don't know if that's a game plan going into spring training. That's a thought out thing saying, hey, we got to try to bring this back into our play style. Or if it's just the play, it's like free reign for the players, do what you want. I don't know which direction they're going, but from the Popkins quote, it does sound like that is something they're trying to add in.
And it's kind of comes from this identity change that the Toronto Blue Jays have undergone. We talked about how this team changed with the Teoscar Hernandez trade, that Daulton Varsho trade. Even when you look at the Ross Atkins era, you look at 2015, the Blue Jays had thumpers. They had Jose Bautista hitting home runs, and Encarnacion. They had obviously Josh Donaldson. Those are the big three. 2016, kind of the same idea. 2017 to 2019 are kind of forgotten years in my head. I think I'm trying to push that out of my head because just the Toronto Blue Jays were not that good in those seasons. But even going back to 2021, like Randall Grichuk is hitting 20 home runs for this team. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. should have been MVP season if Shohei Ohtani doesn't exist. Bichette firing, obviously. You have so many guys that just are hitting home runs, hitting that long ball. Teoscar Hernandez, Lourdes Gurriel, we can go over the players that were doing it in 2021. You go to look at this 2023 team, you go look at the 2024 team. You don't have that power anymore. Obviously, this season you have Anthony Santander. That is going to help. But Toronto Blue Jays just have never really been known for stealing bases, at least under the Ross Atkins era. They went 72 for 88 last season, which is an 82% success rate. So just not doing it a whole lot, only 72 stolen bases in reference. The Nationals led the league with 223. So clearly they're just not running a whole lot. But when we look at the underlying numbers, like George Springer went 16 for 17 in stolen bases. That's 94%. Ernie Clement, 12 for 15. That's 80%. Daulton Varsho, 10 for 12. That is 83%. So when they were stealing, they were getting to second base. They were stealing second. That success rate is best for, or is good for ninth in the league in 2024. Again, they stole the fewest amount of bases in the MLB. It was only ahead of the Braves, the Giants, and the Twins. When you have guys like Daulton Varsho, you have acquired a guy like Andrus Jimenez who can run, has 30 stolen bases back-to-back seasons. Mal Straw, again, played in AAA last season, but had 30 stolen bases as well. You do have a lot of these players that can run. Like George Springer, again, like I said, will be able to run. You have a guy, again, I don't know if he's going to get a lot of playing time, but Jonathan Clase can run. If Ashton Barger gets reps, he can run. David Schneider, not exactly a guy you want to steal every single time, but could be a guy, again, not necessarily expecting it. If he can get a good jump and anticipate a pitcher's movements, that's another opportunity to steal bases as well. And we've gotten two guys in this offseason, and unfortunately, they are sort of known for hitting into double plays, and that is another thing the Toronto Blue Jays have struggled with in the past as well. They have these, they get on base, they get a guy to first base, but then you have either Vladdy rolling over a ground ball, Alejandro Kirk, if he hits the ball in the infield, obviously we know how that ends. Bichette, not a very good season, obviously last year, hammered into a ton of double plays as well. So there is a bunch of players on this team that are hitting in the ground, hitting ground balls, and have more of a tendency to hit these double plays. So if you have a runner stealing first, going to second, that obviously takes away the ability for teams to turn double plays on the Toronto Blue Jays team, and really just ends that possibility of having those rally killers. Double plays absolutely kill an inning for an offense.
Yeah, and we got to get more into this, Carter, because you're right. The ability to get yourself out of certain situations, right? We talk about pitchers being able to work out of certain situations. Well, as batters and as base runners, you have to have that ability as well and the wherewithal to know when to take risks and when not to. So that's something, again, we've talked about demeanor on the baseball diamond. We've talked about maturity in the organization. And that's something we have to come back to as well and think, can we trust these guys to be able to know the right situations to steal and when to take bigger leads, when to hold back? We'll get into all that right after this short break. So, Carter, continuing on, stolen bases, something this team needs to continue and continue and continue to get better at and to develop and to know when to take jumps, when not to. So let me ask you this question, because I know there are a lot of people out there that are a little critical on sometimes even the hitters and the fielding of this team, just with the thought of, can I trust them to make the right decision out there on the diamond at the certain times? And that a little bit for me has gone to the wayside. You've seen a lot of players mature in the game. Like I even think back to a couple of years ago with Bichette and Vladimir Guerrero Jr., if not 2 seasons ago. You could tell they were still a little bit new to MLB, still new to being the leaders on the team. And now we're sort of seeing them become the players that, we're going to be seeing for the rest of their careers. And I think we're seeing the baseball smarts and everything like that really come to this team and knowing what kind of team they need to be. And so I think that this wasn't just pushed by the organization understanding that they need to score more runs. I think it's the players saying like, hey, we see an opportunity. We just need the okay to be able to take that opportunity.
And a lot of this does come down to how much your manager does trust you, how much your hitting coach trusts you. Like for a guy like Vladimir Guerrero Jr., the way he has base ran in the past, you're probably not going to give him the green light to run whenever he wants. Obviously, not the fastest guy in the league either. But you have a guy like, for example, Andrus, Gimenez, or Daulton Varsho, who have pretty good sprint speeds. They are trusted on the base paths, are very smart baseball players. If they see maybe a pitcher isn't even like looking at him, or they have an easy tell sign that they're going to go and deliver to the plate, that is an opportunity that you want to allow, especially your veteran players, to take advantage of. And it doesn't necessarily just have to be stolen bases either. It can be hit and runs. You have guys like Ernie, Clement, Andrus, Jimenez, who don't strike out a ton. And when you have a guy on first base, you have that hit and run, they find a gap. That's an easy way to create offense. And obviously it depends on different situational awarenesses as well. Maybe if you have runners on first and second, you're probably not hammering a double steal to start that inning. If you have maybe, say, Andrus Jimenez gets on base and you have, for example, Ernie Clement hitting behind him, maybe you let Andrus Jimenez steal second and then try to get Ernie Clement to hit a single to drive that runner in. And same thing when you have, say, bases loaded and a 3-0 count, for example. If it's Vladimir Guerrero Jr., you're probably letting him have the green light. You're probably letting him swing away. But if it's a guy like Ernie Clement, you're probably, hey, take that pitch, put us in a different situation. Again, it's all situational awareness, and it's all kind of how the game is presented. If it's a 1-run game, it's a 4-run game. Again, it's all situational awareness and where the Toronto Blue Jays can try to make these strides and try to steal a run in specific situations.
Yeah, and not that, like you brought up the fact that hit and run situations, different things like that. I don't even necessarily think that they need to just do better on stolen bases, hit and runs in that part of the game, but it's also knowing when to take the extra base, when not to. We've saw a lot of problems with this team just base running in general, right? Guys trying to stretch something out when they shouldn't, getting caught up in a rundown. The where they sort of give it too hard to go to second and the slip and the fall a little bit causes an out. That's all stuff that can come back to bite you, Carter. I look at last season, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. was a -6 for estimated runs, which is just horrendous that you're losing 6 runs just on Vladimir Guerrero Jr. himself. Obviously, George Springer was a 3. He was a +3. So great there for George Springer, but you want to see a lot more guys start to get up there into that red and being positive contributors on the base path instead of what I'm seeing is a lot of blue when I look at this, which is meaning a lot of negatives, which isn't good. And that all comes with knowing the game, knowing how to base run, and being confident in your teammates and your team to do so. And again, you brought up, are you super confident in Vlad to do so? No. So maybe that's something he needs to be better at, right? Why try to stretch that into a double when a single works in that situation? Maybe you just drove in 2 runs with 2 outs, and instead of trying to, stretch something into a double, maybe you take your single and you pass the baton, right? You waste pitches. You make longer at bats. These are all little components that go into the game of baseball. And I think as these guys get older and mature in baseball, we'll start to realize.
Oh, for sure. And like getting outs on the base paths is such a frustrating thing just to watch as a fan, obviously as a player as well. Just little things like, say, if there's no outs and you're at second base, there's no reason to take it to third unless you know for a surefire that you're going to get to third base because a single drives you in. Same thing if there's no outs and you're on third base. Maybe it's not a very far fly ball. There's no point in taking that risk. You're on third base. You still have 2 outs remaining. It's just situational awareness in those type of fields. Like I said, with the counts, obviously player specific things can get thrown into that as well. And it's just it's going to be interesting to see how David Popkins kind of does manage this shift over if base running is a focus in spring training for guys like Vladimir, Guerrero Jr., Bichette, these guys that haven't necessarily had the experience in the past, because it's little moments like that in games, especially they add up through the regular season. They are really under a magnifying glass if they can make the playoffs as well. All those little moments do add up. And maybe you do want to take a few more risks in the playoffs, different situations. But again, I think we got to worry about the playoffs if we end up getting there. I think we're getting way ahead of ourselves if we're talking about playoff baseball with this Toronto Blue Jays team. But I just wanted to go into another quote from David Popkins, kind of just about his philosophy and where he is at with giving these guys a little bit more leeway in some of these big situations to kind of go out and do some damage and create some offense as well. So he goes in to say, when you earn those counts, you have the right to get something off. And if you have to chase a pitch, that's okay. We have to give them forgiveness and tell them where they can fail. If you try to do everything, you're not going to do anything. When you get in those spots, they probably felt that they didn't want to chase. They didn't want to make a mistake. If you're afraid to make a mistake, you lose that attack. And if you're not attacking, you're getting attacked in this game. It's all about reminding these guys that they're dangerous. And that is, again, with this Toronto Blue Jays team, with guys like maybe a Daulton Varsho, you want to see a little bit more aggressive, maybe guys like Alejandro, Kirk. I think with Vladdy and Bichette, there might be that installation, especially with how this team has kind of been constructed over the last couple of seasons, that, hey, if we don't score runs, who behind us is necessarily going to do that? We don't have a ton of protection in this lineup. So maybe they were thinking, oh, we gotta hit that double. We gotta hit that game-tying home run. I know Vladimir Guerrero Jr. in a few situations, especially later on in the game, if it was a one-run game, you could see that he was having that home run swing, which in some situations is a good thing, but in others, it's not the greatest thing, depending on the player as well. It's obviously going to be nice for Santander. There was some additions throughout this lineup that should make this offense better, but it's a little bit of this give and take. Obviously, you want your players to be aggressive. You want to set your players up for the biggest success. But again, situational awareness is such a big thing that I hope they have been preaching this spring training, and I hope that can be better for the Toronto Blue Jays future so we don't have these little stupid mistakes, whether it's on the base paths, whether it's in 1-2 counts, 2-1 counts, you name it. They've got to be a little bit smarter when they're playing the game of baseball.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, and that's something we've seen over and over and over again. And knowing, I guess it's hard to speculate a little bit of how Bo and Vlad specifically are going to handle these changes and handle it. I don't want to say the pressure of being the guy that you know this team relies on, but a little bit so. It is a little bit of pressure. You want to be the best on your team. You want to be that face of the team. You're the guy that everybody's going to look to when the chips are down. Now, obviously, like you said, Santander being in this lineup really, really does help that situation. It gives them an extra layer where if Vlad doesn't come through in a big moment, you still got Santander there for a second opportunity, which is a huge part of this, Carter. But I guess moving forward, this goes back to a conversation we had earlier in the offseason of what do hitting coaches do? What is really their role, right? But already we're starting to see some of the changes that Popkins is implementing in spring training, right? I don't necessarily know when I think back to the last offseason, thinking about Don Mattingly and thinking, I don't see a difference in this team. I don't see a difference in the approach. I don't see a difference in what's going on the diamond, but already we're starting to see changes. So is this a Don Mattingly thing, not being able to get through to the guys, or a David Popkins thing of just having a great game plan? Like, and maybe it's not great. We'll have to wait and see, but changes are happening and we're seeing those changes. Is that a big deal to you?
I think having a fresh face in your dugout can only mean positive things, especially when you're coming off of a season that was not very successful. I'm not sure what Don Mattingly exactly was doing. I'm not sure what his approach was, but it wasn't working. Clearly, what he did last year was not going to be beneficial for the Toronto Blue Jays long term. Nice that they did make him take this kind of step back role, not going to be as proficient in this offense, won't be the main voice there. And won't be the first voice that they're going to be hearing. It's going to be David Popkins. I've seen the kind of Guillermo Martinez experience. We've seen it gone well. And at the end of the day, if the Toronto Blue Jays offense takes this massive step and the bats are really firing off, David Popkins is going to be the greatest guy of all time. But somehow, if we don't get this progression, if we have another kind of sluggish year, the first person that people are going to blame are that hitting coach. So again, when we talk about hitting coaches, again, philosophy is a big thing, how they approach the game. The scouting reports would be a massive thing as well from these hitting coaches, but just in terms of like swing changes, like how players are mechanically, what they're looking for, how they do damage at the plate. In that sense, I don't really think they have this massive role, because we see in the offseason, a lot of these hitters weren't going out and hitting with David Popkins. David Popkins did do a decent job at going out and kind of going to talk to his guys, because he is a new hitting coach. But in the normal circumstance of things, it's not usually the hitting coach going out with Vladimir Guerrero Jr., seeing him day in and day out with Bichette, with George Springer. Again, you can go down the list. They all have their own personal hitting coaches. So being a hitting coach in the MLB, it kind of puts you in this weird spot where you're almost a fall man for your offense. If things are going really well, it's going to be a very good time. You're going to have a lot of fun. And things don't go well, you're going to be kind of, the fans are going to have the pitchforks. You're going to be the guy on the stake that people are pointing out and be like, hey, it's your fault this is happening right now.
Yeah, exactly. No, it is a funny thought, because there was just a lot of complaining around the situation of Don Mattingly that I think now that we're seeing guys stealing bases, guys swinging at certain things, going out of their way to take advantage of a first pitch, right? All those little things. And it's all a mentality part of it, right? So I find it super, super interesting, and we'll see how this plays out. Maybe this change of philosophy is the answer. Maybe it just was, hey, these guys are sitting back a little too much. They're being a little too patient, which, talking about the Toronto Blue Jays team being patient is hilarious to me. Carter, my man, we still have a lot to get into. I have a ton of spring training updates on some guys being sent down, how Ernie Clement is doing, and I'll give you guys a quick rundown on how to join this fantasy league as well, if you're sticking around, just so that there's no issues, and what to do when you do join. Anything else on stolen bases, around the offense, whatever else that we've been talking about? Do you have anything else that you want to throw in here, Carter?
Yeah, I just kind of want to circle back to this stolen bases thing again. Like stealing bases, when you have guys that are able to do it, it's going to help you in multiple facets. When you have a guy that's fast, that's on first base, gets in a pitcher's head, more likely to not have their full attention on the batter. Again, more likely maybe throw a ball over the middle, maybe miss their spot, and that allows players to do damage at the plate as well. I brought up that double play thing. I just got the stat on it here. They were tied for 26th in the league. That is fifth worst in double plays per game at 0.78. That's 126 double plays total. Not exactly going to play, but again, if you don't have a runner on first, you can't ground into a double play, which is obviously a very good thing as well. And then obviously stealing bases, it's going to have more opportunities for runners to get in scoring position. Again, they might get thrown out. There might be more opportunity for, again, when you're putting your runners in the heat of danger when they're stealing second base, it's not a surefire thing every single time. But again, you're not stealing bases with Alejandro Kirk. You're not stealing bases with Anthony Santander. You're going to be stealing bases with Daulton, Varsho, Andrus, Gimenez, George Springer. Those type of players that do have those sprint speeds, are able to get good jumps and do set you up to just create offense in different ways. And it's all going to come down to what the Toronto Blue Jays identity is throughout the first couple weeks of the season. We're going to be able to figure out if this team's identity is try to hit the long ball, try to drive in runs with doubles, triples, you name it, or is it going to be this small ball style play where they're hitting singles, they're walking, they're trying to get on base, they're stealing bases. It's all going to kind of show itself in the first few weeks of the season.
Yeah, it is going to be interesting. And you know what? Every episode that we do of this podcast, I get slowly more excited for the season to come about, because, again, you can only take so much away from spring training. And as much as we want to see the little things implemented, until you see the big picture and how it's going to look throughout the 162 games, it really is hard to definitively say anything. But again, in saying that, some spring training updates. Again, update on Ernie Clement. Some guys being sent down, so no longer with the team in spring training, and a couple other things as well with the fantasy update. I'll let you guys know how to join all of that. Stick around right after this short break. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on the fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in on the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I always talk about the parlays, the live games, because I like to bet, when I know who's doing well. Oh, this guy's already 1-for-1 at the plate. His swing looked good. Oh, I'll maybe throw some money on him instead of before the game. I'm guessing that Bichette's going to have a great day. So take advantage of the live bets. It really does help out. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Bunch of things to get into here, Carter. You know what? We always say we're going to have you know what? Let's keep the episode a little shorter. We got a lot of stuff over the next week to get into. And then we end up talking stolen bases for 27 minutes. There's a lot going on in our heads, I guess, when it comes to Blue Jays baseball. So I want to start off here, Carter. This is the roster moves officially from the Toronto Blue Jays. The following players have been reassigned to the minor league camp. Robert Brooks, Andre Sosa, Adam Kloffstein. This is an interesting one. Charles McAdoo, Rainer Nunez, Edison Paulino, and RJ Schreck. So 2 guys, Carter, that I think are the main pieces here that I'm interested to see them not getting a little bit more time is Charles McAdoo and RJ Schreck, the guys that, they obviously traded for at the deadline. But still young enough guys. Don't necessarily think we're going to be seeing either of them in the next probably 2 years. So good for them that they got some time. Now they're being sent down. As well, additionally, left-handed pitcher Adam Mako has been optioned to AAA Buffalo as well. So those that's where that stands. Any guys that you think maybe could have used some time to stay up top?
I'm not mad about any of those, to be honest. Charles McAdoo, like I said, we'd be lucky to see him in 2027. Probably going to play in AA this year. RJ Schreck, again, probably going to be another AA guy. Nice to see them, obviously, because they were in the trade deadline last year, but not guys we expected to have implications on this 2025 Toronto Blue Jays team. Again, maybe nice just for the fans to get more familiar with their swings, more familiar with their style of game. But I don't think in the grand scheme of things, this is a big deal for their development whatsoever.
No, I don't think so either. It's just cool to keep track of where some of those guys from the deadline are ending up. So for those of you interested to see where some of those pieces are, there you go. And this is per Gate 14. This is a direct quote from Ernie Clement. Let him know it's going to take more than a baseball to the teeth to keep the kid down. So he sent a picture. Not going to put it on the screen because it looks not great. Oh, that's what I'll say. Looks like he took that ball a little hard, but looks like he's in good spirits. The picture was all right. So yeah, good for him that it's nothing too crazy. No broken jaw or nothing. It doesn't seem like. So again, look out to see when Ernie Clement makes his return. That definitely sucks that he's going to be missing probably a little bit of time, I would assume, Carter.
Yeah, I mean, you take a baseball to the face, probably going to miss a little bit of time, especially in spring training. Whether he would even be ready to go for tomorrow's game, yeah,
I know this guy. Not this guy.
Well, now you got to go over the story. Now you got to go over the story. I'm not sure if we've told this actually on the podcast, but most of the time, 99% of the time in situations, again, this ball was probably thrown a little bit harder than that ball was hit at you. But
I don't know. Japs can rope balls, man.
when you're in the MLB and you get hit in the face of the baseball, especially early on in spring training, I expect you to miss the next day. I don't care if you're ready to go, you want to play or not. You're definitely sitting your butt on the bench for at least a couple days.
All right, story time. So I don't know if it was last season or 2 seasons.
I think it was 2 years ago, but
I think it was 2 years ago. So memory's still a little foggy from that day.
Wonder why.
So we were playing at the time a rival slow pitch team. They're the rest of our buddies from town, and we sort of always battle it out, or at least that year it was seeming like it was going to be a battle down the stretch between our 2 teams. I play shortstop, was batting, and I think I made it into home, and then I went to coach third base. And so me and the third baseman know him pretty well. We're chopping it up, we're talking a little bit, joking around, whatever. Justin Powers is at the plate. You guys have seen him. He's been on the podcast. Is a aggressive pull hitter, is what I'll say. An aggressive pull hitter. Ropes this ball, and I had a half of a second to move out of the way of this ball. Smacked me right in the head. Cut me a little bit, bleeding, whatever. It was fine. I went down. Everybody's like, oh my God, yeah, he's dead. And not so much. Little woozy. Felt a little weird. But I'm not missing time, Carter. Not against our rival slow pitch team. I couldn't. Apparently, you're not supposed to, because apparently you can die if you get hit in the back of the head with a baseball. But we went drinking after. It was fine.
I guess in the grand scheme of things, everything worked out. I guess the moral of that story is, yeah, maybe actually pay attention to the baseball game that's going on in front of you. Because obviously we were playing our rival team, but again, we know them, we're friends with them, obviously. But since we are friends with them, that's what made them our rivals. And Braden talking to one of our friends, obviously not paying attention too much to the baseball game, and I guess paid the price, which is a little bit too heavy of a punishment for that. But I mean, it is what it is. He's still here today. Maybe a little bit worse off, I guess you could say. But hey, here we are. Still grinding the podcast. Yeah, absolutely love to see it. Can't believe you didn't come out of that game, by the way. Absolutely nuts there. But hey, I mean, we wouldn't have had a shortstop. Would have had to do some defensive replacements. We would have had to put Anthony Santander in the infield. Just wouldn't have worked out too well.
Yeah, the ump was pretty upset that I didn't leave that game because he said I should have went to the hospital or something. My mom also not pleased that I didn't leave that game. But we're here. It's fine. It all worked out for the best, or whatever, for the best, I guess. Just a couple more updates. Sorry, got distracted. These are the pitchers moving forward throughout the week. So today, Tuesday, off day for the Blue Jays. Wednesday, Kevin Gausman. Thursday, Chris Bassitt. Friday, Yariel Rodriguez. And Saturday will be Max Scherzer and Bowden Francis. So there's your pitching lineup for the next little bit here. As those come out, we will keep you guys updated so you guys know what the situation is with pitching, who you want to tune into, right? Which games, I want to make sure I'm watching that one, right? So, yeah, a lot of stuff to come. I just wanted to go over a quick little fantasy note here, Carter. So for those of you joining the Fantasy League, wanting to be a part of it, we ask you that if you do join, you shoot us a message on Twitter, Instagram, Discord, whatever it may be, letting us know just so we have all the contacts for the people in the league. Even if you want to put it in the league messenger chat, whatever it is, go for it. All you have to do, download the ESPN Fantasy app, or if you use a computer and that's all you want to use, you can just go onto the website, click the link in the description. That'll take you right into the join page. You put in your information. It's like an email, first name, last name. That's about it. And it'll join you right to the league. A lot of fun. We've used the app plenty before. It works great. Really goes off without a hitch. So hope you guys have a great time in the Fantasy League. Hopefully we'll see some chirping in the comment section of our videos or in the league chat as well. And we'll keep you guys up to date sort of as the year goes on of, who's the big dog in the league, who made the good decisions, who didn't. We'll have a good time with it. Carter, anything on fantasy or anything besides me getting smoked with a ball in the head?
I just can't wait to see when Vladimir Guerrero Jr. gets drafted in that league. I feel like it's going to be a little bit higher than the average position that he's drafted. But I mean, hey, that's the Blue Jays bias. It's going to go into it. Hey, who knows? It might be one of us that draft him that early. Again, it's going to be hard to not get your franchise cornerstone in a fantasy league, especially when you have a Blue Jays podcast and you're covering the Blue Jays every single day. A little bit more incentive for us to obviously have Vladimir Guerrero Jr. on our fantasy baseball team. But yeah, just wanted to say thank you guys for watching. All the support recently has been much appreciated. We're getting closer and closer to that opening day of baseball. Again, we've still got a long time ahead of us, though. Still got a lot of spring training to grind out. So yes, one more time, thank you guys for watching, and we will talk to you guys tomorrow.